Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Thursday, July 9th. I'm Gina Palma. Looking at our headlines for the next several days, thunderstorms will linger in northern Utah today through tomorrow, and then we will see drier and hotter conditions this weekend with near record heat and breezy winds in many areas. Showers and thunderstorms are also expected to return by next week, and this will be the first push of monsoon moisture we've had this season. Otherwise, we still have our Great Basin Fuel and Fire Behavior Advisory in effect, which will be updated on Friday. Fuels are rapidly drying over the next 5 to 7 days in much of the Great Basin. Here's a quick look at our current advisory. However, this will be updated on Friday, and this will include the Manti La Salle. Otherwise, you can take a look at this advisory on our Great Basin website. Looking at our impacts for the next few days, we will have hot and dry conditions continuing with breezy winds in southern areas and actually starting to pick up in southern Idaho. Winds will pick up over western and northern areas Friday and Saturday and continue down south. However, temperatures will be very hot this weekend into early next week with near record heat, especially over the eastern half of the Great Basin. Precipitation over the last 24 hours, we did see some scattered thunderstorms, which did produce light amounts of rainfall and even some wetting rains scattered about northern Utah and into northeast Nevada and southern Idaho, and even up into central Idaho, where some areas saw over a quarter of an inch. Any of these thunderstorms over eastern Utah were on the dry side, and we did see some gusty outflow winds. Over the last 7 days, precipitation has been above normal in the far north, but really mostly associated with thunderstorm activity, so very spotty where we saw any precipitation at all, or which was above normal. Otherwise, still very dry conditions over much of the southern half of the Great Basin and into western areas, along with the lower elevations of Idaho. Yesterday, we had 29 fires reported across the Great Basin for 330 acres, with over 2,700 acres of growth on our large fires. We're still at PL4, Nick is at PL4, and you can see our fire activity here with several team fires still across the Great Basin and initial attack increasing, with many areas seeing fires grow in size to over 50 or 100 acres easily, and some areas over 1,000 acres. So activity is definitely on the rise. Our morning satellite image here shows weak low pressure over the western Great Basin, and that will keep instability over northern Utah, which we can see in the clouds this morning. So expecting, again, some isolated to scattered showers and thunderstorms in those areas. Otherwise, sunny skies, and we will see instability across many areas where we have large fires, so we do expect fire behavior to pick up today. Looking at our smoke conditions today and tomorrow, really just smoke off of the Babylon, but we could see some of the other fires perk up as well. Currently, our fire danger conditions are shown here, and if you'll notice, this map is different than what we've been showing. We did update our percentiles and the colors on the map, so it looks more similar to the map we were showing last year. But in any case, you can see the most critical conditions over the southern half of the Great Basin, which is where ERCs are already above the 97th percentile. And looking at the graph, they will continue to rise, and we will likely be above records in the next few days going into next week. But you can see the drop, and that is where we're expecting our showers and thunderstorms next week, so we'll kind of see how that plays out. Otherwise, over the northern half of the region, despite moisture we had about a week ago, and even with these thunderstorms we continue to have, where we saw a great decrease in our fire danger, everything is really rebounded, and we're above the 80th percentile almost in all areas. And you can even see in northern areas, we will continue to see that rapid rise to above the 90th percentile in most areas. Looking at our conditions here over the next few days, our weather pattern, we do have high pressure, which is actually expanding west to east just south of the region. So this will kind of shut off the monsoon for the weekend. And as this builds north, it will give us very hot temperatures going through the weekend, with the high generally focused over the eastern half of the region. However, all areas will be well above normal with temperatures, but these records will mainly be approached over the eastern areas. Otherwise, low pressure will be moving into the northwest coast, and this will allow winds to increase across western and northern areas as we go through the weekend. And you can see our high risk here today for just the gusty winds over southern areas continuing with those gusts about 20 to 30 miles per hour, some areas up to 35. And then up north, just the burn environment with a slight uptick in winds. But it's really Friday, which we'll see winds increase more over western and northern areas. So we do have high risk for wind there, along with down south Friday, and then really just in the central Idaho mountains Saturday. Although these fuels are still recovering from recent moisture, we've had a lot of lightning, and with this much drier and hotter regime, along with the increase in winds, we could see some holdovers pop out. Looking at the details, you can see the winds here. Again, the gusts down south in that 30 to 35 mile per hour range, with the gusty outflows further north today. And then we see those southwest winds really increase Friday and continue down south and then continue on Saturday. Single-digit relative humidity widespread across the region through the weekend, very dry conditions, even up north. Precipitation-wise, just very spotty with thunderstorms the next few days, nothing significant. And then temperatures continuing to rise, and we'll see those highs over 100 degrees in almost all valleys by Saturday. By Sunday into Tuesday, this is where the pattern really starts to change, and this high pressure still dominates the eastern half of the Great Basin and gradually gets pushed off to the east as we see low pressure moving towards the west coast. This will help pull monsoon moisture and even some remnant tropical moisture up into the Great Basin, possibly mainly focused on the western side of the Great Basin initially before conditions push east by Tuesday. You can see our beginning high risk for thunderstorms in the south on Monday and then expanding by Tuesday. This is, I would say, take this with a grain of salt. This pattern is very uncertain exactly where the moisture is going to target and where the risk for thunderstorms and where the moisture will be. It could be a day earlier on Sunday and it could be more widespread. So this is, again, something to pay attention to through the weekend. But we are expecting an uptick in lightning, which could be a problem first before the moisture settles in. And then looking at the winds, again, breezy winds continuing going into early next week, but it's really the thunderstorms that are the main story. And then still very dry conditions on Sunday, but you can see how those conditions possibly are moderated as we go into early next week with the moisture push. And then again, looking at precipitation, very uncertain where some of this will be. I would say some areas will see heavier precipitation than what's indicated here, but still very early, so keep watching. And then temperatures still remain hot over the eastern half of the Great Basin going into early next week, but if that moisture does push north in Nevada, we'll see a drop in temperatures. Here's just a quick look at the model differences through Tuesday. We have the GFS, the American model on the left, the European model on the right. Very different with respect to how much precipitation and what areas might be targeted. So again, keep watching and we'll have some details ironed out in the coming days. And then a quick recap of our 7-day, just the increase in winds or continued breezy winds the next few days with the high risk in both the north and the south and in western areas, and then very hot temperatures, dry conditions followed by lightning. 6 to 10 day outlook going through July 18th shows continued hot temperatures, but still that above normal precipitation signature. So we will probably get a couple rounds of monsoon moisture going through the month. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.